Today on the show, we're talking about breaking down stereotypes and building a legacy and how to change lives one story at a time. We have a great episode in store. It's going to be powerful. Hey, let's get into it. Welcome to the Children's Author Show. If you ever dreamed of writing a book that inspires young minds, builds a lasting brand, and even creates a sustainable career, then you're in the right place. From crafting unforgettable stories, to marketing your books, to even monetizing your brand, we'll cover everything that you need to succeed as a children's author. So grab your notebook, fuel that creativity, and let's make your author dreams a reality. This is the Children's Author Show. Welcome back to the Children's Author Show. My name is Andy Coates. I'm an award-winning children's author, book coach, and your host of this incredibly fun podcast, the Children's Author Show. This is a show where we dive into the journeys of children's authors, illustrators, and industry professionals to uncover, insights, inspiration, strategies, anything we can to help you succeed in this very competitive world of children's publishing. And today we have an incredible guest. He's an author, a poet, an entrepreneur, and his name is Jon Marshall. And Jon has written several children's books and is passionate about creating stories that represent strong family bonds, particularly Black fatherhood, which is a powerful and much needed perspective in children's literature. And I'm excited for us to get to hear about his journey, what it looks like for him building his brand, and how he's using storytelling to challenge stereotypes and inspire young readers. So, Jon, hey, man, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Andy. Good to be here, man.
Man, it's my privilege. I'm excited to have you on today. So let's do this. Instead of me trying to, I gave a little snippet there, but instead of me trying to read a bio, I love to hear just your story from you. So let's kind of start at the beginning.
Okay.
From you, what led you first into children's books?
So it's a funny story. I actually wasn't trying to be an author. I was a photographer, right? And I was having my little one, and I realized, oh man, I'm going to be a dad. I'm excited. I'm taking pictures, and my little one started growing, and I was able to read to them at night. And oh man, I had another one. So I had two, I had two boys, and awesome time. I was able to read to my boys at night. And there was two things that I noticed when I was reading. One, there weren't many dads in stories. If there were dads, there were animals, just things like that. And then the other thing I noticed, there weren't many of us, like people of color in stories. There weren't many Black dads and also Black boys in stories. So to be honest, I actually just started creating stories for my son. So we actually just started creating stories together. We would like start stories and we would like finish each other's sentences and create stories. And then I just had this idea of, hey, like, why don't I just create a story for my son? So there's something that they could have. Wasn't my intention to really sell it, but it was something that I was inspired to give to them as a gift. I'm a dad. I didn't grow up with my father, so I wanted to like have something that I had something that I could share with them. So I started creating a story, and in November 2019, what I do is I put up the stories on my son's birthdays, on my children's birthdays. So on November 2019, I published this story, and I just happened to tell my friends about it. And from there, it really just snowballed, right? I got a positive reception of, this is so awesome. Like, it's cool to see that dads are in stories. It's cool to see that, children can see themselves in stories. And I was like, you know what? A lot of my background, I'm former teacher, former social worker. A lot of the things that were important to me within those fields, but also as a person, were families and parenthood and things like that, and also just children to see themselves, literacy. So why not just combine these worlds together? And from there, the snowball happened, and I started creating stories, and they just came to me like one after the other. And what I would do is I would just write the ideas down, and then I would just dive into the stories. And then here we are. I'm, publishing my 10th book. Wasn't like I said, I wasn't trying to be an author. But the pandemic offered a good time where I could just, relax and focus on starting stories. So
10 books total as of right now. All right, now, We're going to talk about this here in a little bit. Are you releasing a 10th book, or is this, or do
I'm
you have
releasing
already have?
10th and
Okay.
11th and 12th and 13th. Long story,
Oh,
but yes.
okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you
Mhm.
mentioned a little bit about your background there. So you didn't, I mean, look, I don't want to try to guess your age or try to out anyone on their age, but 2019, I'm guessing that wasn't the start of your career, you know?
No,
Uh,
no.
so you kind of stumbled into being an author. So tell us a little bit
Mhm.
about the background. What shaped you getting to that point of being an author? What was education, career? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so it actually started, I would say, fairly young, right? If we look at all the things that kind of piece up, right? When I was young, I was into poetry. I was also into music. And different stages of life caused me to make different shifts and adjustments. When I started music and I was doing music, I didn't have a family at the time. So once I had a family, I realized, oh no, I had to, I had to put music aside for the moment. Then I started photography. But in the midst of those moments of doing, music and photography and all the other arts, um, outside of that, I was also a teacher for one point in time. I taught third grade, I taught elementary education. And then from teaching education, I went to social work. And I was a social worker for many years, for about 12 years. And in that time, uh, I got a chance to sit down with families, understand family dynamics, see what the things that are going on in people's homes, the things that they care about, and also the things that that align with me within families. So the education background, um, the social work background, and then all of the arts kind of just, it's funny how these all came together in a culminating stage of 2019 where it was like, why not put all these worlds together? The understanding of the importance of literacy, but at the same time, the importance of family dynamics and what's important to people. Um, and it was really just, every night I would read to my children. I found out like just maybe 5 to 10 minutes was very important to me, just spending that moment of time. And I was encouraged to tell people like, hey, just spend 5 to 10 minutes. That's all you need to do is 5 to 10 minutes. You don't have to spend your whole day, but just slow down for those small moments.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take time to enjoy stories with your children. So
Man, that's powerful. So going from an educator into social work, you in those different both those fields, you get to see a lot of the dynamics of what's happening in the world of kids. You've
mhm.
got your own kids, so not just I mean, you're a parent plus, seeing kids in education and seeing them the social work. You get to see sometimes the really dark
The
sides
really dark side,
of
yeah.
families.
But it also got a chance to see the really beautiful side, the side where people who may not have still have each other, right? Um, those things those kind of things just reminded me the importance of togetherness and community, and just want to like I said, it's want to create little pockets of those. That's why I got into continue writing. That's why I still write now. Is that's my why. I continue writing. Is that just trying to create pockets of moments for for children and families to sit down and enjoy. But even just children to enjoy stories, but also families to enjoy with them. Right. I love laughing with the stories with my children. Right. So that was important to me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all those different experiences kind of pull together, and 2019 hits, and you decide, okay, I want to create this book and kind of get it out there, not just for my own family, but just test the waters a little bit.
That's
So
the water.
walk us through what that looked like for you for that first book, and have the title is I'll be right there. Is that
Yep.
the title of the first book?
Yep.
Okay,
So that was actually it was so the cool thing about it, because I had been in the arts and so much, I had created a lot of friends in different areas. So as I got older, a lot of my friends got older, right? So now I have all these friends who are parents, as well.
yeah,
The reception of my first book was awesome because had a lot of people in my world who were in the same boat that I was. They were parents who had small children, and they knew people who were having children. So the first reception of the book was like, "Oh, this is amazing! It's everywhere." Oh, November 2019, I was on a magical high, right?
yeah,
And then of course March hit, and then the world shut down.
right,
um, but even still, though, I was still in that area of being able to share the stories because so much turmoil had been going on with the world racially too, at that time too. So a lot of people were wanted to hear stories from people of color. So I was able to actually reach more people that way. Zoom was the big go-to. So it actually was a funny time to get caught up in all of that because whereas I was just able to reach, the audience that I had on Facebook and things like that. Now I have the internet that allows me to reach. all across the world, the United States, and the world because I have this platform now.
Yeah.
So it actually went really well because of that time period. So yeah.
Yeah, so that first book that you write, it's got some deeply personal, uh, elements to it for you, but also carries a strong message about fatherhood, but even in particularly Black fatherhood. What kind of inspired that for you? And what's been some of the response you've gotten from that book?
So it's funny how I actually didn't. I actually wrote it like for twofold. I wrote it for my son as a reminder to let him know like there's going to be a lot of things going on in this world, but no matter what happens, I got your back. But I also wrote it for myself as a reminder, as a father, that I have a responsibility to my son to be there for them, you know, when they need it, right? So it was encouraging to write that, but also like I wanted fathers to remember this as as Black fathers, as fathers in general, but as Black fathers, a lot of times it's the stigma of we're not present, we're not there, and I wanted us to know like, hey, we are there, we're present, and we can constantly take the opportunities that we have to be there for those who need us. And even now too, it's funny. I have a lot of people who aren't fathers who purchase the book and they just like their moms or their grandmoms, but it's a message that they want to still share with their grandkids or their children. The reality of this world is a big world. There's a lot of scary things going on, but I have your back no matter what. So, so yeah, it's been an awesome reception. Um, I think the coolest thing is having dads like say, "Oh, I really needed this. Like, thank you for this. I really needed this." And I'm like, a lot of times we don't think about the impact something would have in the midst of creating. Sometimes we think about it, but we don't really like. A lot of times we don't really give ourselves the credit to say, "All right, this can actually cause change or actually see change." I remember being a social worker, and I was always one of the things they always tell you is like, don't get too excited, right? Because sometimes out of, you know, 100 success stories, or 100, one success story out of 100, right? But the reality is you still have to be excited about that one success story. So every dad who comes up to say something to me, that's awesome. That's one success story. That's one success story for me. That I see that, it's important that this father said, I needed this, right? Because I didn't have it when that moment came. I didn't have a book that said, "Hey, you're a dad, you can be this. You're a Black dad, you can be this." I'm not a bear, even though I look like a little bear. I'm not. I'm not a. I'm not a bear, right? I'm actually a human being who has emotions and feelings. I have doubts. I have questions as a father, and I sometimes wonder, like, can I do this? And it was a reminder to me, and I also wanted to be a reminder to other dads too.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, having that resource out there, and we do it for the one.
Yeah.
That's at the end of the day, as an author, we're doing it for that one. Now, there may be millions of those ones over
Mhm.
the lifetime of a book that they become one of those ones,
Yeah.
but ultimately, it's for that one person, and if it
Mhm.
makes an impact in one person's life, it's worth all the effort, and
Yeah.
so, for you, just even if it's just the one, I love that. Celebrate even that
Even the one.
one.
Yeah. I think one of the coolest things is not even just writing the stories. I think one of the coolest things is being able to go to schools, right, in neighborhoods that I grew up in, seeing kids who were in neighborhoods that I was in, and they can say like, oh man, he was an inspiration. Like, you know, he gave me an idea of thinking more than I can do other than X, Y, Z. So I think that's one of the cool things about behind it all too is, oh man, you're an author. Like I'm walking in with baggy jeans and a hoodie, and I'm like, yeah, I'm from the same neighborhood as you, and we still have the same opportunities and things like that. So I think that's another cool thing about it too, is that's the aspect of um, being able to like be an inspiration for people in the midst of what we're doing. So
That's awesome. Speaking of schools, like I do a lot of school visits as well. It's one of my favorite things that I think we
yeah,
as all children's authors, we got a fun opportunity to be in. Our audience can be right there, and it's such an incredible place to be.
yeah,
And in being in schools, one of the things that I realized is there is a lack of representation in books
yeah.
for kids to get to see themselves.
Uh-huh.
And that's it's not just in what at first I was looking at my own books and seeing the lack of representation, but realistically, it's in children's literature. There is a lot of lack of that representation, especially just with just different color of
Yeah.
skin.
Hmm.
And kids need to be able to, based on race, just to see themselves.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I did in one of my most recent books is I was like, I've got to change this so that
Hmm.
kids can see themselves, because I want a kid to be able to step into the worlds that I'm creating.
Yeah.
And the best way for them to do that is to be able to look at the story and see themselves in that story. They
Yeah.
like to see it. They need to see it in order for them to engage with it. And what gaps would you say that you see in the industry that kind of made you want to step in and kind of create your own stories in this space?
So we could talk about the racial one. It's funny. So I released a book called "I Miss You Very Much." It's actually a book about loss. It deals with grief of loss. I lost my mother about a year and a half ago, and one of the things I realized in the midst of that, there weren't a lot of books that dealt with grief, right? Um, but then also, even with that, I got it translated to Spanish because I had to realize like there's other, people who are dealing with loss as well, not just me, an English speaker, right? So those are just small areas, but like even when it comes back to just race, class, all those there's so many different gaps when it comes to literature, and I think the tough part about it is there's tons of stories out there, and what happens is um, the stories that are out there aren't in the areas that are filling the gaps, right? And that's the tough part is like, I get a chance to go like to these author visits and author, book shows and things like that. You get the chance to see hundreds of stories and talk to so many authors. But the reality of it is a lot of those authors aren't in the areas where they can be seen and fill those gaps. So it's a tough reality of there's these areas that have need and they don't get filled because you don't have the platform to fill it. So the reality of that gap is so tough, right? When I started creating the stories, like I said, I didn't see dads, human dads. I didn't see black dads. I didn't see a lot of black boys. Over like the last few years, I've been seeing a lot more of that. But when I first started it, that wasn't there, right? Um, and even there, like the family dynamics or just having fun stories. A lot of the times, when we see our stories, we would see our stories of. I'll just be honest. A lot of times, we would see our stories of our history and our struggle, which is also needed. But a lot of times, they wouldn't have us see our stories of having joyous, fun times, like like a black family actually sitting down and having fun together. You don't see it a lot often in stories, right? So that's the sad reality of that gap there, right? That gap of not being able to see black joy, right? If you would call it that way. Um, so a lot of times, only thing you think you could find as far as stories of people of color, not even just African Americans, but just people of color, their stories would just be more still based around history, which is awesome. Don't get me wrong, but there's a spectrum of information that can be shared with people. There's our joy, there's our pain, there's our ups, there's our downs. Create stories and make all of those stories accessible to people, and not just this story um, that can come out and be shared with somebody. Like make all of these stories accessible. So that I think that was the areas of gaps that I noticed a lot where, um, like when there were stories of us, it was a lot of times it was story of a struggle or of things like that. So it's been awesome to see that gap kind of closing
Yeah.
in small ways. So
It does seem like probably some with self-publishing has helped to close that gap some.
yeah,
Unfortunately, with mainstream, it's not quite as close, but I think overall
yeah.
we're seeing a little bit of that gap because kids need to see themselves in those situations, but it also doesn't, like you said, doesn't need to just be in a uh, discouraging light or seen through difficulty. And
There's one thing I like about a buffet, like you can get to choose from. There's a lot of options there. But the thing about it is that a buffet, you ever been to a buffet where you only had four options? Like this isn't a buffet.
right,
I like options, right? And
yeah,
I think that's a good thing. A thing that really helped me to understand the importance of options was my son. My son Elijah, when he first, started, trying to get into reading, the most important thing we could do for him, because he was having a hard time with reading. Um, and the main thing was he didn't find stories that he liked. So we spent like we lived. It was a cool thing at that point in time. We lived right next to a library, so we spent all this time in the library,
Yeah.
and we spent hours upon hours looking upon books. That, oh man, we finally found something that he liked.
Mhm.
Um, but the thing about it is I'm glad there was a spectrum of those options, right? And that's the reality of what the industry needs to see is like there's a spectrum of readers. And I
Yeah.
think it'll also help with literacy too, because there's a lot of children who who probably could do a lot better with reading, but this may not be content that's based around things or areas that they like. You know, you start them off, with the early reader around content of areas of that they, that they're interested in. But a lot of times it's hard for them to find those books, right? So, and then also too, like it's a whole lot of different areas when it comes down to it. But I think that's a big area too.
Yeah, for sure. I have a chapter book series that I wrote, and I knew it wasn't going to get traditionally published because I wanted it to be heavily illustrated,
Mhm.
full color illustration, and it was a chapter book, which most chapter books aren't fully illustrated.
Yeah.
But I wrote it for the struggling reader because as a kid, I struggled getting into making that transition into reading because I wasn't quite ready to. I couldn't absorb content very well.
Hmm.
I wasn't ready to make that. I was a struggling reader, and
Yeah.
so I needed something, and instead I just didn't read, and so I spent a lot of those early years not being a reader.
Hmm.
And if I'd had something that I still enjoyed the picture books, but I knew I needed more content, and it was kind of eye opening for me that my teacher in one of our classes she read James and the Giant Peach
Yeah.
to us, and she read it out loud. I didn't have to read it. I was so captured by that,
Uh-huh.
and if audiobooks would have been around back when I was in third grade, maybe I would have read a lot more. Um, but they weren't, and
Yeah.
so pictures would have been something that would have been helpful. And so that's one of the things I did was for my chapter book series was create books that are for those struggling readers.
Yeah.
But traditionally publishing, they're not going to the cost of that book it wouldn't be worth it for them.
Yeah. And that's the thing about it is I appreciate that, right? Because you realize the importance of it and the cost behind it is something that but it's really the importance of helping these children to get to another step of their learning, right? So my son, his first like book that he started really reading was like it's called Ricky and the Mighty Robots. It pretty much was a chapter book, but it was fully illustrated and all this stuff, right? And that is what got him into reading. That got him hooked. And from there, he gradually moved on and moved up to like bigger and better. But if they didn't find that thing there, then something to hold on to. And I think that's where it happens with a lot of children, like people in general. It's like if I can't find the bait, then it's hard to grab me. So the cool thing about us is we had the opportunity to create, not say bait, but create a good meal for somebody to eat. There you go. I'll use
Yeah.
that term. So
So it sounds like some of your creative process it comes from some of those personal experiences. Is that are all your stories kind of based off of that, or now that you've kind of expanded into getting into you're in the double digits for books now? Where do those stories come from for you?
So they originally started as just conversations or jokes or something that it could be one sentence that my son said or something that I was thinking about when it came to my family. I have a book called Does This Rain Food? And what happened was my wife and I, we found out we were having a baby girl. But at the time we didn't know we were having a baby girl. We just knew we were pregnant. So my son was like, we're having a baby? And that's I was like, I bet you're wondering how they get food. And all that thought just turned into this idea of a little boy imagining, what's happening inside of mommy's belly. So a lot of it started from just like, conversations or moments with my family. And then the cool thing was when I started doing like school visits and visiting different organizations and summer camps, as of recent, my stories have been a lot of just conversations with the kids and like things that they think are cool. Right. So I have a story. I had a fifth grade class I went to visit last year, and we were just like creating freestyle stories, and we were talking about dragons. And as I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make a dragon story. It's like, all right, Mr. Marshall, if you make a dragon story, I'll read it. I was like, I got you. And
I love it.
literally from that conversation, it sparked desire to make a dragon story. And literally within 2 weeks, the idea and the story were done.
Mm.
So I think the thing is realizing that um, the things that were important to me, which are family, were the things that started my story. But then also realizing that I interact with children and families on a constant basis, and seeing the things that are important to them also help to drive what I write about as well.
Yeah, and I love that. You know, if you're listening to this and you're not doing school visits, that ought to be an encouraging piece for you to realize just
Mhm.
getting into schools is so helpful if you're lacking ideas
Yeah,
because
really
the,
is
the
really
kids are full of ideas of what
so
you need
full
to
of it,
write your
so
books
full.
about.
Yeah, it was so fun. I was like, I got you guys. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to actually go back and share it with them. They don't know it's done.
Oh,
So
awesome. That's gonna be a
yeah,
fun surprise.
yeah, it's gonna be a fun surprise.
So for you, when you write, what would you say is something that you hope that children and parents take away from your books?
Uh, I would say the three things that are important to me. Um, One, time. Time is the most important commodity. The thing you spend, you can't get back. So just take the time to sit down and read it. And when I'm doing like events, I'm talking to people. I tell families, just this is my gift to you guys. It'll take 5 minutes to read it to each other. Um, Time. Uh, I want people to walk away um, with joy. That's another piece, right? It doesn't matter the story. Um, I'm big on. I love movies, and I always think about like the arcs of starting with the beginning of the story, and then at the end of the story is redemption. So every story, I try to have a piece where it brings it home, and it always brings it back to the people who are important in your life. Focus on those things. So every story, in some way, form, or fashion, has that in there where it just brings back to the people who are important in your life, your community. Um, when I was the social worker, one of the things I was challenged to do was to help families and people think about the community that they have involved with them, and let them know like this is important to you because your success is based around not just you, but the people you have around you. And the third thing I would say, I think the aspect of it may not. It's funny. I focus on literacy in all the books. All the books are so far. I'm still moving, like I said, moving towards a couple books that aren't rhyme, but all of my books are written in rhyme form and short. For the aspect of being able to learn, maintain, reciting, recitation, and poetry is easy to remember because of how it's done. Um, so a lot of my stories are done in the sense of helping families to start reading to their children young, where they see it and they hear it and they can put the two together. And it doesn't even matter, even if they're young. It could be, they could be 3, they could be 13. Doesn't matter where they are and they're reading. Everybody needs it. So, yeah,
Nice, man. That's awesome. That's the kind of stuff that keeps us going. You
yeah,
know, in this journey of as we're starting to build and develop in this author space. You know, having that driving force behind it of why we're putting it out there, I think is such a huge piece of it.
yeah,
Let's shift a little bit here. You know, one of my passions, and really the purpose of this show is to help authors build their brand. And a lot of authors they focus solely on writing. You know, let me produce a book, and then once they write the book, and if they're self-publishing it, they may pay someone to put it all together for them, and maybe even do the illustrations for them, and then they put it out there, and then that's it.
uh-huh.
And that doesn't move
Doesn't
the
do it.
book,
Yeah, doesn't
you
do
know.
it. Yeah.
Uh, but you've also embraced the business side of things. So
Mhm.
for you, there's that entrepreneur side. And how did you transition from being an author to what I call that authorpreneur, if you
Yeah.
will?
I think that the easiest way that helped me is because I had a business prior. So I already had a help in the mindset. Like I said, I was already a photographer. So I already had a business. I understood the importance of it, right? I understood by the time they get to my product, they already understand and like my books. And so they also want to know the person behind the product, right? Um, and it was an easier transition. But don't get me wrong, it wasn't an easy transition, but it was an easier transition than it is for a lot of people. And I think the reason why it was easier is because of the aspect of realizing that once I do this, that this is not it. I think the tough part, one of the toughest things when I go to like a lot of author events or I just meet different authors, I just talk to them, is this idea of I created this book, is out there, nobody wants it. What am I doing wrong? And I said, well, what are you doing? That's the biggest thing. And like, what are you doing? Are you doing anything about it? Right? You invested enough in this story, and if you think it's important, you have to continue to invest in it. Right? I'm married. I've been married for 17 years. Right? And the reality of it is every day I wake up, I have to choose to invest in my life. It's a choice I have to make every single day, and you have to view everything that's important to you the same way, right? So, once you put the book out, it's not just I released this book. No, I have to invest in this every day if it's something that I believe in. I have to actually take the time to reach out to people who are doing if I don't know what I'm doing, right? I have to reach out to people who are already doing what I want to do. They're already at a place where I want to get to.
So
Um, but
from that investment standpoint,
uh,
like if you need to invest in it, there needs to be that constant investment. What would you say are some of those key things that authors need to be doing to build that brand, to be investing? What are some of those things that you would advise authors just from your own experience?
yeah, I would say time, of course. Um, once you the same time that you put into dedicating to putting the book out is the same time you have to put into dedicating to like, actually making sure that it gets in the hands of people, right? Every day, I spend at least 30 minutes to an hour, but I dedicate 30 minutes guaranteed every day, dedicated to, you know, the business of authorship, right? That means reaching out to organizations or schools. That means um, emailing people. That means call, like whatever it means, even writing new ideas about, that means like going on YouTube and finding people. That means going on TikTok and see, that means creating content. That means constantly every day, making that investment, in what you believe is yours, right? Um, like I said, if it's important to you, you invest your time in it. And then you invest your talents, right? You have to believe your gifts. And another thing I think people also forget is their why, right? In the midst of trying to do all this business aspect, you can forget your why, and when you forget your why, you can easily lose your way. So just staying grounded and remembering your why, and then I think the last piece would be intentionality. Just being intentional about what you do every day. I have to be, I can get easily distracted so easily. I probably have like 14 thoughts right now. I'm going all over the place, but I have to be intentional about everything that I'm doing when it comes to uh, this whole business aspect of things, right? It means learning. That means taking time to invest in you. That means it means taking a class or learning about taxes. I mean, like the smallest things that you may not know about. But I always tell people you are what you eat, right? So constantly consume the things that are important. That what ends up happening a lot of times is people see, you see when they see the success of an author, whether it be traditionally published or self-published, and they don't realize like the mud that they went through to get to that point, and then there's a lot to get to that point, and you know just take the time to invest and learn, maybe learn from them or learn from somebody to realize like it wasn't just easy to jump from here to here. There is a lot of work that goes into it. So
Yeah, really the when you write the manuscript, for writers who just they love to write,
yeah.
and you create a book, and so you put all that energy into writing and thinking about your, because even thinking about the book is writing. So you
Hmm.
put all that energy into that, and then you publish it. And I always tell authors that the end of the writing journey for that book is when you hit publish, but
Hmm.
the start of being a published author is when you hit publish.
Yes.
Yeah, because like
Hmm.
so many people, they put all that energy and they think they're 99% there, and then it's the end, when really it's the beginning. That's where it all starts, and I love that intentional piece.
I think a lot of times too, people, um, the tough thing about a writer is that you just enjoy the writing, and a lot of people don't like the business aspect of it. It's tough, right? Some people just want to be honest. I just want to be creative. I could just write stories and have everybody, that would be awesome. And that's good. Like sometimes that's good to learn the areas that you're good in, the strengths that you have, and the areas that you don't have strengths, and finding out how you can maybe utilize other resources. Right? I'm not an illustrator. I find an illustrator who can help me with that. I don't do I don't do book design. I find so realizing the areas that you are gifted in, and realize the areas you may not be gifted in, and finding those resources who can be beneficial for you. But just that aspect of you know, like I said, I think people get that they forget their why. They create a story and then they put it out, and then often happens too is online you put it on Amazon or you put it on Goodreads, and you get a one you could have 77 people give you amazing reviews and get one questionable review. It can also that can cause you to like spiral and think like, well, why am I still creating stories? And you're not creating it for the one who doesn't want that story. It's for the 77 who really took something from it. So I think that's another thing too, is trying to encourage authors to not get discouraged in the midst of this journey, because it's so easily it can be isolating. Um, in the midst of this journey. And I think a lot of times, a lot of authors just, when it comes to the business aspect of it, it could be daunting. And when it becomes daunting and you're just a writer, it could become isolating and overbearing. And then, so, like I said, if I can encourage anybody, find somebody who's doing what you are, who are you doing or doing what you want to do, and try to build a collaboration with them. Not work wise, but at least have somebody who's walking in your corner. So,
Yeah, for sure. Having 10 books out there now, so you've gone through this process many times
mhm.
of writing the book and then publishing it yourself, and I guess you've self-published all of them. Is that correct?
Yes.
So how do you market your books and get those out there into the hands of readers? What are some of your strategies that you utilize?
So cool thing about it is one one big um one big kick to all my books. They always come out on my children's birthdays. So the people who follow me already know, like, if your son Isaiah's birthday is coming, I can expect a book sometime soon. Or or Elijah is coming, I can expect a book sometime soon. But I do utilize different means. One, of course, you ads, things like that. Social media, of course, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I think another thing too is realizing that I can't do it on myself, so I also reach out to other resources. So I've connected to a lot of people who are, um, you know, uh, people who are, uh, you know, use Instagram and TikTok, and also reach out to them as a resource. So I have my books online being read. Um, Part of like a lot of different author groups as well. So I'll reach out to other authors and have them, say, hey, can you mind checking this out? You mind sharing this? So the good thing about it is once you start to build up a community, for me, the most important thing was building up a community. And from there, it was utilizing that community to help me share the information that I have. And from there, that's how I've been successful, is being able to utilize the community that I've had to continue to share outside of just ads and things like that. Of course, you have to utilize ads and things like that. But financially, you may be starting with the idea of wanting to start a book, and you may not have the money to run ads, but you may have a community that you're talking to, right? You may have an organization that you're already working with in the community. You may have a church. You may have a friend here or there. Um, and utilizing those things, those people in your corner to help share your gift and share your book with the world. So it kind of started there. Was I was using it, utilizing community, and then I worked from an inside circle and worked my way out.
Nice. And it sounds like school visits became part of that branding for you, of getting your
Uh-huh.
book out there.
Yeah.
What was that look like for at the beginning for you, getting into schools? What was that first step like for you?
So, so the funny thing, once again, I'm in a weird place. So I actually work at a university. I currently work at a university as well.
Yeah.
And my position in university, I work in education. So I'm already connected to a lot of schools.
Yeah.
So cool thing about it is, hey, would you mind coming to read to my school? Sure, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
why not? Sure.
If
So
I have to.
if I have to, why not? Sure. So it started with that aspect, and then other schools would hear about it and like, oh, we can have them come out. So I, once again, I think the importance is utilizing your resources when they are available to you, right? Um, so I actually accidentally ended up in schools. I ended up in schools because I was already connected to schools. I was once a teacher, so they asked me to come back. Hey, you mind coming back to read your? Yeah, yeah, I don't mind. And it kind of just snowballed from there. So uh, now, what that ended up doing was allowing people to see I have something else that I can offer. Right before, I just had a book I could offer. Now I'm offering an experience in a school, and that's something totally different. Is now I'm not just reaching families and children on an individual basis. I'm reaching masses in a different way. All right. I'm able to talk to organizations. I'm able to talk to the city of Philadelphia. Was like, hey, can you come and read to our park and recs? Oh yeah, sure. Why not? I don't mind being in the park. you know, mosquitoes love me, but I don't mind it. So you never know where your opportunities may come from, and I think it's just being willing to take those steps once you get to foot in the door. So
Nice.
yeah.
Every author along the way, I know you and I both have faced obstacles,
Mhm.
challenges that we've hit along the way. And what have been some of those, I guess, big challenges that you would say you had to overcome in your own personal journey?
So my biggest one was almost getting lost in that why. So when I first released I'll Be Right There, I wanted to do it traditionally. Um, and reaching out to have everybody do it. This is before I even had the idea of doing it on my children's birthdays. It was just something that I wanted to traditionally publish. And of course, sending it and getting shot down can also say, oh man, like nobody wants to hear this story. That's what you see it as, right? When you reach out and try to shop your book to a traditional publisher and you shot down, you could think nobody wants to hear my story. So that was the biggest barrier for me was when I got when I first got that rejection letter of like, no, we don't want your story, no, thank you. Um, I started to, and I'll be honest, I started to question: is it my story? Is it because I'm black? Do they not want black stories? Like, is it because I'm talking about father and son? Am I not marketable? And I started to question: why should I even try to do this? Why should I even move forward with this? And
Yeah,
and
because
part of
a rejection, no matter of what kind,
uh-huh.
makes every rejection come to the surface.
Come to the surface, yeah. And then,
So
like I said,
every reason to be rejected all of a sudden hits us. Yeah.
yeah, like I said, they didn't even give the reason why, but I started to think about all these reasons why they rejected the story, and I started to wonder: are these stories, or is this story even important? Why am I even doing this in the first place? And I know many people could probably go through that as feeling like once they get that rejection, um, why am I doing this? And you know, luckily I had somebody in my corner. My wife was like, do it differently. I still believe in your story. I still believe in it. Not everybody has that, right? So I hope you find whoever's listening. I hope you find somebody who's in your corner. But if you don't have anybody in your corner, be in your corner. Um, but yeah, that was one of the hardest ones for me. Was like almost questioning my why of why I'm doing this in the very beginning before I even got to this point. And then after that point, I think uh, one of the hardest things for me would be still even doubting yourself, even when you get to the point of feeling like, okay, I'm doing a lot better than I thought I would, right? But you can still doubt yourself. You can still have moments that creep up. You can still, as a human, look to your left or your right and see, oh man, that author is doing this, or this person's doing that, and you can easily get discouraged. So it's probably the biggest thing I would say from my barrier was like discouragement of just trying to realize that I'm running in a lane. And sometimes I'll look at somebody else's lane and realize where they are.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So for a lot of creatives,
Mhm.
just hearing from you there a little bit, a lot of creatives struggle with that imposter syndrome.
Yes.
That all of us who are creatives at some point that's going to come up. Have you
Mhm.
struggled with that a little bit for yourself along the way?
So what it's funny, whenever I have an idea that pops up, I always Google and look as many places to see if like is this my idea? Is this something that I'm thinking of? Is something I was thinking about? So yes, that's normal, right? When I was doing music, I always wondered like, did I use a line that somebody may have used in their song in one of my songs? When I was doing photography, the thing about it is you try to emulate poses that you may have seen. So the reality of it is no matter what, we're going to have some form of fashion of somebody else's work in our material. Because that's the thing about it. We create based upon the things that are around us, right? Whether it be nature, whether it be people, whether it be so. You're going to have some form of fashion where you feel like you may be taking something here or there, um, and that's why it's important also to make sure that you are grounded, that you have people that you can go to and say, "Hey, does this seem like, or could this be, or does this seem like it could be?" Or making sure you have people to hold you and check you and keep you accountable. Um, but yeah, like I said, every story when it pops into my head, I'm like, is this a story that I may have read or may have seen? Um, you know, that's the cool thing about it is like going to the author, like a lot of these book events, you get a chance to meet a lot of authors. You get a lot of stories. You get a lot of books. People share books and things like that. One thing I'm always trying to be cognizant about is making sure that I'm not taking someone else's idea or story or things like that. Um, so yeah, it's easier to have imposter syndrome when you're like taking in a lot of content, when you're seeing a lot. So you always just have to be mindful of those things too.
What would you say for you, like now multiple books in, what keeps you motivated to keep creating and even when the process gets tough to like keep pressing forward? What keeps you motivated? What's your driving force?
Be honest, is actually talking to children and families. Like literally, like in the midst of creating a story, it can be frustrating and all, and then it'll be do a school visit, and you'll just see the faces, or you'll sit down and do a book reading in the community, or you'll um, just have a Zoom that like whatever it may be. I did this a school visit deal via Zoom, and the cool thing about it, I have a book called Me and My Kazoo at the Zoo, and what I did is actually, the teacher was able to get books for the class, and I sent them kazoos with it. And it has instructions in the back of how to use it. So like, in the middle of at the end of the book, we all did, we're playing the kazoo together, like, that doesn't sound like how a kazoo sounds, but like that moment, like that's the kind of thing that reminds you this is important, right? Of seeing the joy on their faces. And like, I couldn't, I had a bad day that day. It was actually like, I didn't, it was one of those days, it was a Friday and I was actually tired and exhausted, and I walked away from that energized. So a lot of times we don't realize where our battery comes from, and that was my battery. So a lot of times, it could be just interacting with from a book fair, and somebody comes up and they talked. Oh, that looks just like me. It looks like my son. You got the same haircut. Like that kind of stuff um, is the thing that drives me to continue to realize like there are families who are seeing these things, who are seeing themselves, who are enjoying the stories, um, and continuing on.
There's all those different difficulties and challenges that come up, and so being able to hang on to those special moments is incredibly important to us as authors. We've
Yeah,
got to be able to hold on to those. Otherwise, it's easy to get in our heads about, you mentioned earlier, the 77 good reviews and the one negative. It's
yeah,
easy for us to think about the one negative, and especially when most of this journey of being an author is spent in isolation. You want to get away, put headphones on, even if you're in a coffee shop with people around you,
Mhm.
you probably got earbuds in and you're zoned in and locked in. So it's still an isolating place,
Yeah.
which is where our thoughts can start to get very negative and discouraging. So having those memories, and I like to write them down so I don't forget them.
Mhm.
Is writing down what are those things that those big moments that help keep me driven, so that when the negative pops up, it's like, yeah, but that negative is not near as strong as this moment,
Yeah.
uh, especially those really rewarding ones. For you, what would you say is, one, you may have multiple, but for you, probably the most rewarding moment or moments that you've had so far in your author journey?
Um, I've had a lot. I've had some really awesome moments. This one, um, this one class, I got a chance to. It was funny. It was a kindergarten class. And one of the one of the little boys, after I got finished reading the story, he literally just got up and gave me a hug. Right? Like that was cool to me. Like that's cool. The reason why I'm saying that, and a lot of people may not see that as important. I'm I actually just cut my beard off, so I had a full beard. Right? I'm 6'2". I'm not a small guy. I'm a big black guy. Right? So for a little kid to actually not have the fear to get up and give me a hug was awesome to me. Because a lot of time I've walked around life, and this has nothing to do with authorship right here, but I've walked around life feeling like people are scared of me because of my height and stature and the way I'll look. And for that little boy just to get up and give me a hug, say thank you, was cool to me. Because I don't know who this child was, and that was big for me. Like I said, wasn't even really an author moment, but it became of course it was an author moment because I was in the but it was a moment just as to me as a human to say like what you do is important. Like you're actually showing people that what you see is not always what you get. So yeah, that was important, man. I would say that's probably one of my biggest. Like I have a lot of cool moments with families and things like that, but
Yeah.
that was probably one of the biggest for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those, like, as part of your journey, even breaking some of those stereotypes,
Hmm.
like, that's a moment where you're like, "Hey, there's some breakthrough here,"
Yeah.
of that, me just being I'm not as tall as you are, but I'm a big fella, and to a first grader,
Uh-huh.
a male, they don't I mean, most teachers are female,
Yeah.
and then you have, this a big presence in their presence can be intimidating.
Uh-huh.
And when they just connect with you because of the books you've written or the presentation you just gave, man, those hugs, those high fives,
Yeah.
those kids not wanting to walk away until you sign their book,
Yeah.
those kind of things are so rewarding. And I don't know about you, man, but that's why I do the school visits.
Yeah.
Is
There's
it's not for them, it's for me.
yeah, it really is. It
Yeah.
really is like I'm only gonna lie, it's like a dopamine hit to be honest.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, that you don't realize like my intention was to create a story for you, but and you don't even know that in a lot of ways you're healing me in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. So it's been cool. Like just that aspect of like I said, even back going back to my own communities, like
Yeah.
I had a chance, it was one time I had a chance to Malcolm X Park is a park that's right down the street from my house, my
Okay.
old house where I grew up at in West Philadelphia. And they asked me to come back and read in this park. Now, this park, back in the day was like a drug haven and all that. So the fact that I'm actually reading in my old community in this park
Mm.
was big to me because I grew up here. I remember getting robbed in that park, to be honest, right?
Right.
So all those kind of small things, the things that were small to me, that's big to me because I'm actually reading to children in this community that I grew up in. That's big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it, man. Love it. So for you, man, let's talk for a second here about what's next for you. So you got book number 10 about to launch. Now you may be listening to this and 2-3 years later from when we actually release this podcast, and John may have 20 books by now. But as we're uh,
I'm not there
talking
yet.
about this right now, John's releasing book number 10. In fact, it released this week, and so this is just this past week, just a few days past. So if you are listening, it's a great time for you to go grab that book. But
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit for those who are listening, and tell us a little bit about this new book that just came out.
So this is called My Dragon's Not Laughing. And like I said, I might have said this early in the podcast, but um, it actually came from a conversation. I had a school visit, and I went to go to a fifth grade class. And one of the things I do is we kind of create a freestyle story. So we like fill in blanks and have all these things. So I have everybody create their own story, and we walked away with all these cool ideas. And one of the ideas was like, oh, a dragon. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make a dragon story. He's like, oh, you are? I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make a dragon story. And I was just joking with the class, like saying I was gonna make a dragon story. Didn't know it was really gonna actually become a story. But as I was driving home, I was like, dragon story, dragon laughing, dragon laughing. I just wrote the title down, Dragon Laughing. And from there, it kind of just sparked this idea of a little boy who has a friend who's a dragon. And for some reason, dragons just won't laugh. Like, I don't know what's going on with the guy. Like, there's a lot going on. So yeah, it sparked that idea from that story, from that thought to become a story. And then It became an idea of just being persistent and consistent to see somebody else have joy. So
I love that.
yeah.
So where can listeners, or if anyone, maybe they're watching this right now and get to see our beautiful uh, bald heads here. We got beards and bald heads today on the episode.
Yeah.
Where can listeners or watchers find that book?
So you can buy it on, of course, Amazon and all those things. You can buy it from my website, www.wrotebyjon.com. Stories of a Colorful World is another awesome website that'll have it as well. And the place you buy books, Target, Walmart, all those places. But I wouldn't mind you if you got it from my website. That'd be nice.
Yeah,
Stop by, say
websites.
hi. Stop
Yeah,
by, say hi.
you get more connection if you swing by and visit
Yeah,
our
you can stop by,
website.
say hi. I can say hi back.
Yeah.
So
Where can folks follow you if they want to connect? What's the best way to connect with you?
So Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, they're all Wrote by Jon. WROTEBYJON.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
What I'll do is I'm going to drop all that in the show notes for those of you who are listening or watching, just so that you can connect with him. His website will be there, just in case you forget what he just said there. He spelled it out for you, so you should have that
You
down.
should have it. You should have heard that.
But I'm going to pop it in the show notes, and it'll be linked there for you just to click on that link so that you can go connect with Jon and find all his books and resources and catch that latest book that's just come out. And again, if you're listening to this 2 or 3 years down the road, you can catch all the ones that have come out since this book has been released. So, well, Jon, I just want to say thank you, man, for sharing your journey today with us.
I appreciate it, Andy. I appreciate this, man.
Man, it's been such a blessing, such an encouraging episode. And man, look, if you're listening or watching today, and today has just inspired you, make sure you do us a favor. One, I want you to go check out his website. Go see his resources that are out there. Support him. Show your love to Jon. And also do us a favor on the podcast as well. Like, share, and subscribe to this episode and to the podcast so that you can get that notification whenever new episodes do show up. If you are listening on a podcast platform, do us a huge favor. Leave us a review. That really helps us out to grow. We're really excited about the growth we've already seen from you, those of you who are listening. But just want you to know, we also do have a companion video version of this where you get to see us on YouTube. So come see us on YouTube. Drop us a comment below. You get to see our lovely faces on here. And I have some great fun guests who are joining me. And if they get all dressed up nice and fancy for you to see them. So come check us out on YouTube and drop us a comment there. That's a great way for us to connect with you. In fact, let us know what your takeaway is from the episode. And if you're looking for more guidance just on building your brand, we discussed a little bit of that today about building your brand as an author. I want to encourage you to check out my best-selling resource. It's called the Children's Author Toolbox. It'll be a great resource for you. You can find that on Amazon. The link to that will be in the show notes as well. It'll just help you on navigating that writing journey, that publishing journey, and that marketing journey that you need and making your book be successful as you build your author brand. So check that out. Link will be in the show notes. And if you're up in the Philadelphia area, go connect with Jon and one of his events and hang out with him at some festival or a different event that he might be at. So best way to do it, connect with him, see what he's up to. I want to encourage you, come back, see us, check out some more of those resources, the videos and podcasts that we do have out there. And until next time, keep dreaming, keep writing, keep growing, and keep bringing stories to life for those young readers who are out there. Thanks for listening to the Children's Author Show. We'll see you next time.